This is a brand new game reveal I have the honor of hosting on my channel, along with an interview with the two twin brothers who are the indie developers behind the Space RTS and 4X hybrid, which they have named Commander's Fury. This kind of exclusive access and content wouldn't be possible without you, my viewers, because it is your viewership, comments and sharing of my videos online that makes developers like these come to me. So as a thank you, I hope you will enjoy this in-depth interview about a game never shown publicly until today, and one I hope will be of interest to you.
Hello, my name's Lauren Mortensen, and this is my identical twin brother,
Lauren Mortensen.
Lauren and I are really into board games, especially strategy, military board games. We also love studying military strategy and military history. And we wanted to build a game that goes in a different direction that focuses heavily on military immersion, a RTS hybrid. We've been working on this title for about 5 years, and we want our game to be where you feel like you are in command. You have battles you fight personally, but you also have commanders under your command. And we're excited to finally start showing it off.
After welcoming both of these devs to my channel, I first wanted them to explain what in the world made them decide on the aesthetic where space warships are transparent and so colorful on the outside. I have never seen anything like that before.
As crazy as it sounds, the hologram shader was originally created entirely for functionality and not for its aesthetic. We originally had metallic ships, and we created the holograms as just a separate view just to see the health of the ships. We liked how the hologram made the ships feel more sci-fi and futuristic. We wanted to avoid the health bars, and so we used the holograms instead. But over time, the ships became more complicated with, for example, different damageable sections or had different healths of each other. And so we actually added advanced shader logic to be able to have the sections on the hologram different colors to reflect that. We later wanted to add armor plates that were separate from the hull sections with their different healths and strengths. So by process, we kept adding functionality to the hologram over many iterations to be able to show more and more information easily at a glance. We developed different view modes as well to improve the holograms. We also wanted to add internals, and we started with just very simple shapes. Those shapes evolved into more complex shapes because we wanted the different parts of the ship to be instantly recognized at different distances. We created dual color schemes because at far distances, the ships became a blob of color, and we tried to recognize whereas a color pattern made the ships distinct even when really small. After the dual colors, we experimented and we found that we could get some really cool effects by manipulating the lines, the fresnel effect, the ambient color, and the detail colors of the ship. We tried many different ideas that didn't work. We found some ideas that we tried that worked, and some ideas were even by accident. Overall, we've gone through around 10 iterations, and we still have ideas on how to improve the shader even further. Eventually, we decided to get rid of the original metallic ship because we just found that the hologram was just so much more interesting.
This just goes to show you how having an odd idea doesn't mean it's not worth exploring, as it might give your game a totally unique and never before seen look. And this of course meant I had to ask, how does this strange aesthetic work inside the gameplay? Because from what I saw in the gameplay footage, warships have some sort of armor, which is dynamically removed as it gets shot by enemy weapons, and the internal components become visible. But in some other shots inside the trailer, internal components are visible before shooting.
In Commander's Fury, we want to show a lot of information to the player quickly. Our main interface design principle is don't make me think. We don't want the player to have to think hard when they see the interfaces. We want the information to just be intuitive and obvious and easy to recognize at a glance. We found the best way to show lots of information with the holograms is to have 4 different view modes. The first view mode is the faction colors, where each faction will have its own set of 2 colors to mark that faction. When ships get damaged in the faction colors view, there will be brief flashing that shows the damage so that the player can know what damage was recently inflicted. The color of the lines will show the health of the armor that was damaged, And also the section that was damaged becomes transparent so that you can see inside any components that will also flash and show the health as different colors. Second view is the hull damage view, which shows the different health of the different hull sections using traditional colors like green, orange, yellow, then red. When a hull section is destroyed, it turns black, and all the components inside are also destroyed. The third view is the armor strength, and we wanted to use a different color scheme to not be confused with the hull damage view. So we went with different shades of blue, from light blue to dark blue, and we also wanted to go from opaque to transparent, and that combination makes it easy to see the armor thickness of the different parts of the ship. The more transparent and darker the color, the thinner the armor is and the less protection. Red means that the armor is completely gone and the components are exposed and fully vulnerable. For the last view, the components, we wanted to make it like the hull damage view so that the components show their health based on their color. This is important because as the components get damaged, their stats change and they become less functional. For example, a ship with red engines is very slow since the engines are heavily damaged.
My next question was about how are we going to be controlling these real-time fleet battles, fleet-wide, per ship, per weapon, and how targeting is going to be handled.
Players will generally move and rotate their ships as part of a 3D formation. Players will control the target position and facing the formation as a whole. Facing is in terms of 3 axes of rotation, so our game will be fully 3D. Players can also make adjustments to an individual ship's relative position of facing to the formation. Also, we added that players will be able to save and set several configurations of their ships for the formation, so they can quickly and easily switch those configurations during combat. For targeting, some special weapons on the player's command ship can be directly controlled by the player. For the rest of the weapons, the player will set AI directives on each ship of their fleet. These weapon AI directives are the maximum and minimum range to fire, whether the weapon will focus on a specific target ship, whether the weapon will focus on ship type, whether the weapon will focus on a target component type, whether the weapon should focus on exposed components in general, whether the weapon should focus on armored components. Should we use power efficient weapons or should we use high pierce weapons? And then also, should we focus on maximum overall damage? And should the weapon use chain fire or alpha strike?
And since they mentioned the fleet several times, I was interested to learn what is going to be the maximum size of a player's fleet.
I'll take this one. This is Laren. We don't actually know yet. Our guess right now is that fleets will be about 5 to 10 ships. Instead of swarm tactics with hundreds of units, we are aiming more for the player to control a smaller number of complex, detailed ships with rich tactics. Our current design is for the player to commanding one fleet directly, which is their flagship fleet, and then the player will control several more fleets in battle indirectly using subordinate commanders, which are AI. The player controls these subordinate commanders using orders and directives. We found that the main limitation is not the hardware performance, but what players can handle, especially with 3D space. Graphically, right now our game can handle about 50 to 100 ships in a battle firing and being hit at the same time with our current level of optimization. Ultimately, there are a lot of factors and we won't really know the size of fleets until the game is more progressed and we've done more playtesting.
With the main consideration being the player's ability to control big fleets, I had to ask, was there going to be combat pause, and would players be able to give commands during pause, with a similar system for the 4X element of the game.
Combat and operations will be pausable. Players will also be able to issue orders during pauses. And the 4X part of the campaign is turn-based.
As for that campaign, I made sure to ask, are they working on a proper story, characters, and voiceovers for it all?
We don't know what level of game story we're going to have yet. We do want the player to start as a ship captain and rise up the ranks. This is primarily so that players can learn the different layers of the game. These layers are complicated enough that a quick tutorial wouldn't be good enough. Also, part of the fun of our game is learning and mastering these new mechanics as you progress through the campaign. The layers of progression are: first, controlling your flagship; second, controlling your fleet; third, commanding subordinate fleet commanders; fourth, running an operation; and finally, the full 4X campaign.
Since I knew a lot of you would be interested in playing co-op or multiplayer of a game like this was my next question.
This is Laren again. Sadly, we will not be adding multiplayer when we launch. We do want to keep developing the game and add post-launch features, including multiplayer. We originally wanted to primarily build a multiplayer game because we felt like our combat mechanics had a lot of depth and they were really well suited to multiplayer. However, we were building the multiplayer and working on the campaign, and we realized trying to build both would just be taking on too much. We have already built the multiplayer networking framework and infrastructure, but there's also a lot of other work that needs to be done for it to be fully multiplayer, and so that is going to be something we're going to have to do in the future after our first launch.
Certainly not the answer you wanted to hear, but it makes sense, considering it is single-player content that is the main driver of sales for most games. Feel free to dispute this in the comments below. Anyway, single-player usually means factions, so let's hear what they plan on that front.
We haven't built the factions yet. There are still a lot of dependencies on the game's overall mechanics, and several of those mechanics need to be more solid before we can design the factions.
And this is understandable, since this video is about the game's very first gameplay reveal. Many elements like this one are still very much on the design board. Now, because they mentioned how the 4X element of the game is turn-based, I wanted them to tell us more about its gameplay.
There are two timescales in the game. The macro timescale is the 4X part of the game and will likely be turn-based. This part of the game is for longer duration actions such as managing resources, ship and facility production, training commanders and crews, diplomacy, preparing for military operations, and long-term logistics. In the 4X part, instead of battles every turn, we're going with the design of more of having military operations that are conducted less frequently and require multiple turns of preparation. When the player, or the enemy AI, is ready, they will launch an invasion. This invasion of a star system switches the game to operations mode. In operations mode, the operation has to be fully conducted and completed before the game goes back to the 4X mode. When an operation starts, the player is managing multiple fleets traveling on the star system map and all moving simultaneously in real time. When fleets meet, they engage in 3D battles, sometimes happening simultaneously with each other. The player can only be in battles with their own flagship fleet and has to switch between the war room and fighting with their fleet. Battles that are not involving the player's fleet are resolved by subordinate commanders that are following the player's orders. Using these subordinate commanders is a big part of the game. These subordinate commanders can level up with combat experience, and players can also customize their training with a skill tree to make their actions more predictable and successful. This customization also means that these subordinate commanders are better at some missions than others. When the player sends his flagship fleet to a battle, they can engage in that battle directly, and so it's very important that the player prioritizes and chooses which battles they want to be in. The player also has to be very careful, because if the player's flagship is destroyed, they die and lose the game. Subordinate commanders aren't just given orders to attack a fleet and gain control of a location, but instead they try to execute different orders which become the commander's missions. Examples of missions are creating a diversion, conducting a raid, fortifying a position, doing a scouting mission, taking over a starbase, provide reinforcements to other battles in the area, resupply and repair, etc. Players can also help the AI by giving them directives that help the AI know what to prioritize. Examples of directives are avoid casualties, only engage the enemy at long range, take position at all costs, attack as quickly as possible, etc.
The next element of gameplay I was interested in was the resources and how the player will manage those.
Our game focuses more on a war economy and logistics. Players manage the resources of ships, starbases, weapons, fuel, mechs, which acts as troops, commanders, crews, and supplies. They also have to send those resources where they are needed. There isn't a global pool that you can draw from except for money. The resources need to be sent to locations so they can be used. Players also have to deal with supply lines in operations. Ships that are out of supply will not be able to repair, rearm, or refuel, and quickly become vulnerable.
Since we saw a lot of different weapon systems in the trailer and extra footage, I wanted the devs to explain more about these to us.
This is Lauren. The main goal of combat is not just about inflicting more damage. It is about destroying the enemy's components. There are different weapons that serve different roles. Splash weapons are effective at causing a lot of damage to the armor, but have no penetration. Higher pierce weapons are able to bypass weak armor and destroy vital components underneath. Precision sniper weapons allow ships to attack from long range and take out exposed components. Players also have a limited number of devastating super weapons to use at critical moments to turn the tide of battle. We've created 9 different weapons that each have their own special effects.
After learning about weapons, it was only logical to ask them to explain defense systems, countermeasures, and any other systems which can protect ships.
There are several different defenses for ships. There is ECM warfare to use against guided weapons and to reduce weapon accuracy and effective range. There is powered armor that blocks damage. This armor weakens as it gets damaged. There's changing your ship's facing to hide vulnerable components. There's evasive maneuvers that can help make unguided weapons miss completely or miss the components they're trying to hit. Also, we added tractor beams that can slow or pin ships to protect your more vulnerable ships from being attacked.
Because I'm sure that after learning so much about this game, you also want to know when will you actually get to play it, I asked about the release plans and possibility of a demo.
First, we plan on releasing a playtest before our demo. This playtest is primarily for feedback and to fix game design issues. After the playtest, we will launch our demo. We don't have a set expected date for the playtest or for the demo, but we do want to emphasize that we are not planning to use the demo or the playtest for bug testing. We feel that is not fair to our community. Our goal is to release on Steam in fall of 2027, and we do not want to do early access.
Similarly, I was interested to learn if these devs have post-launch plans already.
The big feature we are definitely going to add post-launch is the multiplayer, since we've done so much work on it already.
Learning that multiplayer is one of their top priorities after a successful launch probably made many of you very happy, so I also asked how you can help the devs.
The main feedback we'd like to hear is what features they find the most appealing, and also what they think about our art style.
And of course, to be able to give feedback, you have to know where you can contact these devs.
This is back to Laren. We currently have Twitter and an email address, but when we reach the playtest phase, we will start using Discord.
I was personally very interested in which engine this game was being made, as I wasn't able to figure it out just by this footage.
For our game, we use the Unity game engine.
Both of these brothers have experience in the field of software development, but I wanted them to tell us did they have some past project we could check out and see what they have made before this game.
Commander's Fury will be our first commercially released game. We have worked on several smaller fun side projects that weren't really commercially viable. Also, about a decade ago, we worked several years on a fantasy game, but we ran out of funds and never completed it. We have learned a lot since then, and we switched to this project because it plays more to our strengths as software developers.
I must say I very much enjoyed making this dev interview, even if it wasn't exactly live, as not only am I having problems with my allergies, but these devs were both a bit nervous, so making recordings of answers was easier for both parties. I am very thankful to them, not just for this interview, but also about them making Commander's Fury into a game I'm looking forward to trying out. Its Steam page should be up at about the time you're watching this video, so make sure to wishlist their game.
We would just like to say thank you for doing this interview, and we'd also like to thank your audience for listening.